a Florida video. Now, Florida came into the league in 1993, and they went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 1996. Well, this has been my Florida Panthers video. No, I gotta talk about more than that. I got the new snazzy webcam. And I've got my snazzy recently purchased jersey and my recently purchased hat on. So what is there to say about Florida? Well, they recently rebranded themselves. They've been the home of Roberto Luongo for, a long time between two tours of duty. They've been a team that struggled to draw fans, and they've been under a cloud of some sort. Like, the NHL's never said they're moving the Panthers, but between half-empty arenas in past seasons, I'm not talking about right now, and just a general malaise around the franchise, they were the natural selection to move. And to this day, there are many fans who will say, well, you could move Florida to Quebec. Well, you could move Florida if you needed to. Oh, hey, Kansas City's got a brand new building. Well, you can move the Panthers up there. And it's warranted, but Florida has been in the league for almost 25 years. And I always kind of defer the whole argument about fan support to success on the ice. And again, I've used this analogy in other videos before. The NBA in Vancouver, the Vancouver Grizzlies were an expansion team awarded at the same time as the Toronto Raptors were awarded. The Vancouver Grizzlies are long gone because the Grizzlies were run terribly. They were a terrible team that never accomplished anything on the court. They never even got close to a playoff spot. And it became more and more difficult for Vancouver to support the Grizzlies. And when they moved, there wasn't really a whole lot of argument about the NBA. But I always wondered if Vancouver had been run better, if they hadn't drafted Bryant Reeves, what could have happened? Now, I look at Florida in the NHL and I say, well, yeah, attendance numbers are down, and you could argue, well, Florida, Jacksonville's not a hockey market. Vancouver wasn't a basketball market. Vancouver would have supported, I believe, basketball if they'd been a competitive team. Florida has gone almost 25 years now with one team able to win at all. So when I was trying to do some research for this video, and I'm trying to find different articles in different magazines I have, it all comes back to this. It all comes back to this. This incarnation of the team is the one that every magazine seems to agree upon as that's it. This 0 down here, that's the amount of playoff series they've won since the rat-infested Stanley Cup final in '96. And this was published in 2012. So even though it's almost 5 years old, that 0 is still the proper number. But let's go through it, because it was really interesting and alarming. I personally cheered for Florida from day one instead of Anaheim. It was like they both came in and I went, all right, well, I got to cheer for one of them. I'll cheer for Florida. Part of the reason was when I first saw this jersey, I thought it was orange. I don't know why. I have no idea. I thought it was like a orangish red. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. Maybe it was just the different colors on the jersey, and it made me think it was orangish red. And then when I saw it in real life, I was like, oh, it's just red. I'll buy it. And I bought it. I bought Florida right away, the expansion year. And they achieved more success early than Anaheim did. They went with a more veteran lineup. They coached a more defensive style than Anaheim. It was less entertaining, but it was more successful early. The problem is when that team of grinders wasn't able to stay together and stay at that level they were in '96, the cracks showed right away. And because Florida had been successful right away, they hadn't had the top draft picks. So there was a void there. And the 96 Cup final may have hurt the franchise long term more than it helped in the short term. But I do remember that year well. After missing the playoffs by 1 point in both of the franchise's first 2 years of existence, which was incredible. I remember they were 1 point out their first year as an expansion team. And I so desperately wanted them in the playoffs. I thought that would have been awesome. The year of the rat proved to be a special one for the Panthers. The luck was foreshadowed at the beginning of 95-96 at the team's home opener when Scott Mellanby set off what would be the team's calling card. Shortly before they took the ice, a rat scurried into the dressing room and made a beeline for the Panthers' leading scorer that season. As it got to me, really out of self-defense more than anything, and probably fear, I just one-timed it, Mellanby chuckled. Probably the best one-timer in my career because I certainly wasn't going to rival Brett Hull. I always pictured as Mellanby squealing like a little girl as he hit it. And I say that not because I didn't like Mellanby. I like Mellanby a lot. I just think it's funnier that way. Mellanby scored 2 goals that night, which led goalie John Van Beesbroek to remark the right winger had achieved the rat trick. It was a theme that began to pick up steam, culminating in a shower of plastic rats raining on the ice after each home goal, and it was so obnoxious. It was fun the first couple of times, but my God, it got obnoxious. And what it also did, so you got all these plastic rats raining down from the crowd. It destroyed their momentum. Florida would score a goal, and then everybody would just sort of sit on their hands waiting for the rats to get cleaned up off the ice. So, in essence, the team that just got scored on's got a timeout to talk about what happened, talk about the goal, look at a replay, and say, all right, guys, let's not let that happen again. It wasn't great planning by Florida fans. I admired their moxie, and I admired their overall enthusiasm, but it wasn't a great move by them. The Panthers began the season with 14 wins in 18 games and didn't stumble until they wrapped up the year with a 6-12-2 stretch, leaving them 4th in the conference. And I remember when they were 4th in the conference. Sorry about that. Sorry, this camera is really sensitive. This is amazing. I'm so excited about the new camera. But I remember when they limped into the playoffs thinking, oh, they're not going to do anything. And then they did. They started off by beating my Bruins. And I mean, that to me was humiliating. A team that had only been in existence for 3 years beat my Bruins. And it wasn't even that difficult for them. What followed was an unlikely run to the Stanley Cup final from a team of checkers who might have been considered spare parts in other clubs. And they were. Van Beesbroek was spectacular, posting a .932 save percentage and 2.25 goals against average with a 12-10 record in his most successful playoffs. Most successful by a mile. Beezer was acquired by the Vancouver Canucks from the New York Rangers before the expansion draft because Vancouver wanted Beezer to get taken so the Canucks would not lose Kay Whitmore. So they protected Kirk McLean and they exposed John Van Beesbroek and Kay Whitmore. Because the feeling was that Anaheim wanted Kay Whitmore. They wanted a young goalie, and Kay Whitmore was viewed at the time as being a potential starter. Van Beesbroek, just one of the best goalies of his generation. I was really upset at the time. I was like, wait, we just got Van Beesbroek and we're going to let him go? Why? Why are we doing this? Well, they got to protect McLean. No, we don't. McLean isn't any good anymore. Like, this was a couple years. Well, no, was it a year after? No, they came into the league 93, 94. You know what? I still would have sacrificed Kirk McLean. In their prime, there's no comparison between Kirk McLean and John Van Beesbroek. And I'm a huge Kirk McLean fan. But I was baffled. Absolutely baffled. If you hear Slipknot in the background, that is because Yvonne messages me and my phone is set to remind me with Slipknot Psychosocial. It's a statement more on, it's an inside joke about my past. Not about her. She's not psycho. She is social, though. After beating Boston, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, however, the Panthers ran into a strong Colorado Avalanche squad that overwhelmed them in the final. Strong is an understatement. The Panthers lost 3-1, 8-1, and 3-2 in the first 3 games. And that 8-1 was just a shellacking. Like, it could have been worse. Could have been. And then they lost in triple overtime in Game 4. And I was really upset about the triple overtime because I knew Colorado was going to win it. And I knew even if Florida won it, I'm like, they're down 3-0. They're not coming back. And I wanted Florida to win a game against Colorado. I wanted to see the Panthers win a game in the final. And I was very upset when they didn't. It amazes me how well the team did, period, Mellenby said of the Panthers. That team had a unique chemistry and I wish you could bottle it. What's interesting then, as well, is that the Florida Panthers, after that cup win, they went on a 17-game unbeaten streak to start the following season. And then it just fell apart. And Stu Barnes being traded halfway through the season was viewed as the undoing of the Panthers. And it's funny because Stu Barnes isn't a guy that you would look at his stats. You can look at his stats online, and Stu Barnes, you're going to look at it and go, oh, this guy's got to be a key guy for the Panthers cup run. But he was. Every member of the Panthers was pretty much equally important. It was the first time I'd ever seen a team of basically nobodies. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying it because these guys had basically all been cast off from other teams. They didn't pick up big-name free agents or big-name players until later. And honestly, when Florida picked up Pavel Bure, it didn't help them on the ice. They found out pretty quick what the Canucks knew, and Canucks fans knew, which is that Bure, one of the best goal scorers in the game, also a selfish player, and probably had to be introduced to his goaltender at the end of every game because he wouldn't see him during the game. And when Florida went to Bure, what happened as well was you had this organization that had built itself early as a workman-like blue-collar group. And then you put Bure in there, and it's just, it didn't work. Van Beesbrook would move on. I believe he ended up in Philly. And then, I mean, he was done by the time he left Florida, admittedly. And then, Luongo came in because Mike Milbury was stupid. And Florida was very willing to take advantage of his stupidity. And they picked up Olli Jokinen. Now, for Flames fans, you guys remember Olli Jokinen as sucking. Florida fans would remember Olli Jokinen as a pretty good player for a few years there. I believe he still holds Florida records for points and goals. I don't know, though. I could be wrong. Let's see. I don't have this loaded, so it's just going to take me a moment here to find this information. Discuss amongst yourselves. Panthers. Good name, bad name. Should they be the Florida Oily cans? I really want Oily the Oil can to happen. Because of the fact that I mentioned it last night to the girlfriend, and she laughed her ass off. She thought it was really funny. It's like, see, we need Oily the Oil can to happen. And if it's not going to happen in Edmonton because they're stupid, then, and I don't mean that as any insult to Edmonton, but they're stupid, then, make it happen somewhere else. Let's see. All these are going to be pretty much dominated by the same people. So for games played, I better load that up. For games played, Stephen Weiss leads the way with 654 games. Stephen Weiss, who then left to go to Detroit, which was a mistake. It was a mistake for Detroit to sign him, and it was a mistake for Weiss to leave Florida because he never fit in Detroit, and he was injury prone. Radek Dvorak second with 613 games. Robert Svalis 573, very underrated defenseman. Olli Jokinen 567, Scott Mellenby 562. He was one of my favorite players at the time. Paul Laus 530, Rob Niedermeyer 518, Bill Lindsay 506, Jay Bomeister 471, and Luongo is now 10th with 463 games played. As Luongo sits only 70 games from 1,000 in his career. So that sneaks up on you. Number one in goals, Olli Jokinen, 188. Scott Mellenby second with 157. Pavel Bure, 152. Stephen Weiss had 145. Nathan Horton, 142. Radek Dvorak, 113. Rob Niedermeyer is tied with Victor Kozlov for 7th with 101. Ray Whitney has 97. And David Booth is 10th with 87. So the current crop of Florida Panthers, nowhere to be seen on this list due to the fact that they're very young or they've recently joined the Panthers. Assists, it's basically the same group. Brian Campbell shows up there with 147 assists. Points, no real surprise there. Victor Kozlov sitting at 5th with 291 is a bit of a surprise, but Bure with 251 points goes to show that he was indeed not a guy who passed the puck, because he had 152 goals and 251 points, meaning he only had 99 assists in his time in Florida. And people can say, oh, well, he didn't have all that much talent in Florida. Well, they didn't have that much talent in '96 when they went to the final either. Power play goals, Scott Mellenby is the leader with 66, then Olli Jokinen 65, Stephen Weiss 48, Pavel Bure 44, and Ethan Horton 37. Victor Kozlov 36, Rob Niedermayer 33, Ray Whitney 29, Robert Svala 26, and Ray Shepard with 25. And I liked Ray Shepard a lot, although when he got slow, turtle, big time turtle. And not the kind of turtle that gets punched in the face by Max Domi either. That's a Kessler move. All-time wins list, Roberto Luongo with 181. John Van Beesbrook 106. Thomas Vokoun 101. Vokoun, one of many players brought in by Florida in the hopes of this is going to get us to the playoffs, and it just didn't happen. Or if it did, they didn't get anywhere when they got there. Mark Fitzpatrick with 43. Scott Clemmensen 40. Trevor Kidd with 28. Ed Belfour 27. Jose Theodore 26. Craig Anderson 24. And Sean Burke 23. So you only need 23 wins to get on their top 10 wins list. Shutouts, and this list is just as hurting. Luongo is number 1 with 33. Then Vokoun with 23. Van Beesbrook with 13. Craig Anderson with 5. Mark Fitzpatrick with 4. A 4-way tie for 6 with 3. Sean Burke, Trevor Kidd, Jose Theodore, Scott Clemmensen, and then 10th with 2 shutouts in Florida, Kirk McLean. It's kind of surprising Tim Thomas didn't get in there, because Tim Thomas was usually good for shutouts, but you know, it's just, it is the way it is. So, or it is what it is, I guess I should say. But anyways, Florida is one of those teams. They're middle of the road. Right now, they're 500. This is being taped November 8th of 2016. They're a 500 team. They're unspectacular. They don't have big household name star players. They're relying on depth. You might look at the 96 roster and look at their current roster and see a lot of parallels, but not as much experience. So I don't know if I see a cup in Florida's future, but they should be competitive for a playoff spot this year and for years to come, based on the fact that most of their key players are young. Aaron Ekblad has the potential to be a dominant defenseman in the NHL. Ekblad has the it factor that Florida needs to sell tickets. Luongo is a big name that can sell tickets as well. And there's potential with a guy like Huberdeau as well. And just a lot of their players in general. It's a matter of getting it all to come together. One thing I said before the season started was, yes, you know, on paper everybody loved everything Florida did, and I said that's fine, but it can take a while to gel. Having all these players that look great on paper, sometimes it takes a while for it to come together. It seems to be coming together, but every time they start to pick up momentum so far this season, it's fallen off. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, I don't know if I qualify myself as a Florida fan, but I will cheer for them in games against a lot of opponents in the East and definitely California. But I cheer more for Luongo than for the Panthers. I think Luongo was kind of hosed during his time in Vancouver in terms of he didn't get the credit when the team won, and he got all the blame when the team lost. So I'm glad that he got to go back to Florida, and I'm glad Florida fans have him, because he is a great team guy. I never heard a bad word about him via teammates through back channels. It was never said, oh, that Luongo is a prick. And if a hockey player is jerkish off the ice, you'll usually hear about it, especially if he's a star player. So, and the Panthers in general, I like the moves they've made. They have definitely one of the best GMs in the league, and they think outside the box. Like, they use advanced stats, and advanced stats get talked about a lot. But when they picked up Keith Yandle, it was more than just advanced stats. It was them saying, look, we got to get our power play together. We've got to get our special teams in order. So that's a good sign. It's a good sign that the team is thinking about where it needs to improve and making those improvements. They'll probably never be fully a cap team, but I do have high hopes that they won't be a will not or a have not, that they will do their best to succeed, and that they have the capital, the interest, and the fan base now that going forward, I'd honestly like to see the Panthers stay in Florida. I know everybody wants to see a team in Quebec, and I agree. I just don't see Florida as the team that I'd like to see move. I think the natural geographical rivalry between Florida and Tampa is tons of fun, and if both of them are good, then you can have a fantastic rivalry. Just ask Alberta when Calgary and Edmonton were both good, how fantastic that rivalry was. And just imagine what a solid Florida-Tampa rivalry would do for hockey in the U.S., especially in the southern U.S. It's that kind of story that the NHL needs south of the border. And, I guess we'll see if they get it. One question I do get asked here and there is, will I get the new Florida jersey? Not yet. I'm not paying full price for it. I don't see it as being better than this. That's why I went out and I bought this one while it was on sale, because it's like, okay, so they're selling off the one I like. I'd better get that one. And I'm all panthered up because I anticipate this season being able to cheer for them in the playoffs in the NHL. I do. I think they will go on a streak at some point here, and I think the potential is there for a decent playoff run. And for the sake of Luongo, I hope it happens. Anyways, thanks for watching. I will be doing the Los Angeles Kings tomorrow. The Kings. And the Kings are a team I have a love-hate relationship with. And I'll get into that tomorrow as well. I would love to share other information about Florida, but basically it's been a have-not team or a really close team that's just missed the playoffs for most of their existence. And I certainly hope that last season was the start of a different chapter altogether, something completely different where things will get better. So if you're in Florida and you're a Panthers fan, or just a Panthers fan not in Florida, best of luck to you guys, because my three teams all suck right now. Well, Boston's above 500, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in them staying there. And Dallas is playing poor, and Vancouver is just... it's not pretty. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all again soon. And if you're browsing through, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because this channel is only going to get better, and you might as well get in on the ground floor of that.